third position, so we're looking for some fantastic action from this class once again. As the riders line up on the grid before the start of their warm-up lap, we're going to be seeing Mason Foster in pole position on bike number 88, ahead of his championship rival and his sparring partner of yesterday's race, Johnny Garnett. So expect fireworks from those two once again in this race. Emmanuel Brinton in third spot. Let's see what he can do from third on the grid, ahead of Sullivan Mounsey, the two podium position finishers yesterday. In fifth position is Josh Bannister on bike number 2, heading the third row of the grid, ahead of number 66 Ronnie Harris in sixth spot. Clayton Edmonds on bike 146 is in seventh position, ahead of Samuel Munson on bike number 72. And in Ethan Sparks on bike number 62 is in ninth position on the fifth row of the grid, ahead of Henry McCartney on bike number 31. Taylor Stewart Campbell heads row number 6 on bike number 97 in 11th spot, ahead of number 100, that is Cameron Sewell. Charlie Huntingford on bike 76 in 13th, and Warwick Brady on bike number 99 is in 14th position. And rounding out the runners and riders for the start of this junior LC40 elite class, race number 2 from round number 2 here at Red Lodge at the 2019 FAB-Racing is going to be Holly Harris, and she's looking for a great result as she had in a previous race earlier on today.
Well, a strong result for Holly Harris will be hoped for. Brandon Perrell, you're coming up to the line. This is the final moment in a wet race. The clouds are coming over, the wind is picking up. What are you going to be feeling?
You've definitely got the nerves in these sort of conditions. As you can see, it's starting to rain, so you got that. Sorry? Yeah, so you can see like the rain starting to pick up, so it's going to be on your visor. If you've gone for a smoked visor, you're going to be thinking, have I picked the right one? And then you're also focused on the lights, and you're trying to anticipate the lights before the start. And it's just so nerve-wracking, but if you get the perfect start, you just feel so alive.
Well, the riders look towards the red lights now. Are they going to make a great start? Underway, the second row makes a better start than the front row. Mason Foster, though, gets away decently, leads the race heading into turns 2 and 3 for the first time out of 8. Through the left, then the right, the chicane, very tight, a bit twisty, and it's going to be very difficult for some of these riders just to make it through. It's already a three-way fight for the race lead. Johnny Garnett and Emmanuel Brinton well and truly in there, side by side, a little further down the pack. Couldn't make it work. There is a little bit of time to make the move, though, as Emmanuel Brinton is trying to find out, tries to make it up the inside. A rider's gone down at turn number 6. They stand up, the marshal passes them back to the bike, so they look all right. Should be getting back underway in the race for a few moments' time. But the race leader has just made a shift off of it. Emmanuel Brinton fighting tooth and nail for second place, heading into the final corner for the first time. On rider's right-hand side, tries to go for the potentially the grippier outside line. Couldn't work. The cutback might work, also doesn't work. So Johnny Garnett in second place, but it's Mason Foster, your leader, 1.2 seconds ahead of Johnny Garnett. And so far, Sullivan Mounsey in third place.
Yeah, so Mason Foster is extending the lead at the front of the field. But remember, Mason Foster was out in one of the races a couple of races ago. Brandon, how important is it that you've just been out recently to know these tricky conditions in a race like this?
Well, it's really positive, because if you have 2 races, you can focus mainly on one and use the other one as a tester. So like with Jay King in the PB 140s, he's gone out in the Extreme 200 class to test the conditions, so he can go into the PB 140 class knowing the conditions and maybe push even harder than he would have done before.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Mason Foster out front, he's had the most recent experience of what the conditions are like right now, as the rain is just spitting at the moment. As we come across the line, it's Mason Foster with the fastest lap of the race. As we say that, it's just been taken by Ronnie Harris in 4th spot on bike number 66 at 54.729, so a couple of tenths faster than the riders around and in front of him. Johnny Garnett is still in second, just ahead of Sullivan Mounsey, but as we can look, Ronnie Harris has got aggressive riding going on at the moment, deep into the midsection of the circuit as they come in towards turn number 6, on towards the back straight. Will we see an overtake in towards the next turn? Not at the moment so far, but as the riders make their way down the back straight, down the back of the field, we've got a move for around about 7th position. The rider goes for the move up the inside, but just backs off as the rider on the outside carries more speed into the turn. So Mason Foster still leads the way ahead of Johnny Garnett. Sullivan Mounsey lining up a move into the final couple of corners. Will they be able to get it as Ronnie Harris closes in on the battle for second?
Ronnie Harris, you say, closing in. That battle for 7th, you've just mentioned, that was Josh Bannister and Clayton Edmonds, who were starting to fight tooth and nail but as they make their way into turns 2 and 3 again, it's getting very close for our riders Ronnie Harris and Sullivan Mountney, as well as Johnny Garness, well in the mix. A three-way scrap for second place at the moment. They're really enjoying it out there so far. 3 laps completed. Mason Foster is 1.5 seconds ahead of Garness. Mountney and Harris is currently fastest, and we've got the very strange situation of identical fastest laps. Both Mason Foster and Ronnie Harris have set 54.170s, so they both hold fastest lap, but Mason Foster would get it because he's currently the first person to set it out there. But sliding off again, he's got off again. Mason Foster has lost it again. The front end just loses grip, and it's happened at the same corner as it happened just a few races ago for him. He's really struggling at turn number 7, the exit of the right-handed hairpin. The temperature clearly not getting into the front, might not be working the front enough. He's got fastest lap though, so I suppose there is some consolation. But Johnny Garness now leads this race under an increased pressure because Sullivan Mountney can smell the first place, smell the victory. Desperately wants it halfway through this race already. And Ronnie Harris, it's a 3-way scrap for the lead, Liam.
Yes, absolutely, Dan. We've got Mason Foster down in 7th spot at the moment, but once again, he started this lap 1.5 seconds off the back of the following riders, Clayton Edmonds and Josh Bannister, but already as one of the other riders down at the turn number 6, hairpin before the back straight, the rider is up and the marshals are checking out the bike, trying to get the rider back in the race. Sits back on the bike and away he goes again, so just losing a few positions there, which is good that he is up and okay. Looking towards the front of the pack, Johnny Garness is looking like he's getting to grips with these conditions here as he's trying to open up a bit of a gap, and he does. Sullivan Mountney has got Ronnie Harris all over the back wheel for second position, heading in towards turns 2 and 3. Very tricky part of the track, Brandon. So yeah, it's a very tricky part of the track. We'll try to bring Brandon in there, but had nothing to say, which is all right, Brandon. Just thought I'd throw you in the deep end there. So as we see the riders heading towards turn number 6 onto the back straight, we said that Johnny Garness was opening up a bit of a lead, but that has come right down again as Sullivan Mountney got a fantastic run through turns 5 and 6, heading towards the bottom end of the circuit. It's a great battle for first position. Johnny Garness and Sullivan Mountney, and of course Ronnie Harris. Ronnie Harris is trying to line up a move for second position on Sullivan Mountney coming towards the final couple of corners.
But Sullivan Mountney's in a very uncomfortable position of attacking and defending all at the same time. He does have this whole attack thing under control though. We've had a rider go down
Mason
at
again.
turn 7. That's Mason Foster again. It's lost the front end. It's an Achilles corner for Mason Foster, the number 88. Not something we normally expect from Mason. He's very, very strong rider. Doesn't normally make mistakes, so perhaps he's getting his season's worth of mistakes out all in one go. 54.007 for Sullivan Mountney. New fastest lap on the tail of Johnny Garness. It was 0.265, the gap between the two leaders heading onto that final lap. 2 laps to go. Well, 1.5 laps now. It's a long old run for turn 6. A rider goes down at turn 3. What front end just washes off. They're up and running back to the bike, so it looks to be all right for now. The race leaders, though, a lap and a half to go. And it is Johnny Garness who's ever struggling aboard the machine, starting to close in, heading towards the final few corners. Lines up for this, the final lap. This is going to be a very last opportunity for our riders to make the victory count. But Johnny Garness, the 57, is ahead of Sullivan Mountney. Ronnie Harris is third, still an outlier, still could take the position if they make a mistake. And Johnny Garness has got to go through the infield with a heightened precision, which he is doing so far, Liam.
Yes, absolutely, Dan. Now look at Sullivan Mountney. He's very good through the tight sections of the circuit on this lap. Ronnie Harris is trying everything he can to get onto the back of Sullivan Mountney, but not quite doing it at the moment as they head on towards the back straight. The final few corners through the left-hander as it tightens up. It looks like Johnny Garness has a bit of a gap over second position. Sullivan Mountney, Ronnie Harris is trying up the inside into the right-hander, doesn't quite get it yet. Johnny Garness in the lead of the race as they come down towards the final turn. Couple of bite legs ahead. Will Sullivan Mountney mount a challenge as they come out the final corner? Not quite yet. As they power across the line, it's going to be Johnny Garness taking the Junior LC40 Elite race win ahead of Sullivan Mountney, and Ronnie Harris completing the top 3 on the podium. Brilliant result and fantastic riding from the top 3 in the race. Emmanuel Brinton just misses out on the podium in 4th position. 4.7 seconds behind your race winner. Josh Bannister comes home in 5th spot, rounding out the top 5. Samuel Munson just crosses the line ahead of Mason Foster, who went down twice in that race, so a fantastic recovery ride from Mason Foster. As you said, Dan, has an Achilles heel with that right hander at the bottom end of the circuit, not only going down in this race twice, but going down in the AC40 Pros earlier on in the day at the same turn. Cameron Sewell ends up in 8th spot on bike 100 ahead of Clayton Edmonds, and Henry McCartney rounds out the top 10 ahead of Warwick Brady. Holly Harris in 12th spot ahead of Charlie Huntingford. So Brandon, you've got to bring it back to the top 3 in that race. Great ride by Johnny Garnes, of course, from Sullivan Mounsey and Ronnie Harris, but how difficult was it for Sullivan Mounsey to try and mount a challenge with Johnny Garnes when he was riding inch perfectly?
It's very hard when you see a rider in front of you riding inch to inch perfect and you don't know what to do. It's really disappointing when you come to that. If you come to them final couple of corners and you can just see they are just that little bit in front and you get the sniff, but you don't make the corner, so it's really disappointing. But
And what does this do for Mason Foster having a crash at the same corner twice in one race and earlier on in one of the earlier races in AC40 Pros?
That's going to be right in his head for his next race, because he's now not going to push as hard through that corner, but also he's going to have a sense of now there's no grip through that corner, so he's maybe going to be a little bit more confident. You never know.
Yeah, so especially at a young age, you sort of try and brush it to the side, don't you, and just get on with the next race. So with the weather the way it's playing up today, it's sometimes very wet, sometimes drying up a bit. It might even dry up, we'd never know, but it's quite greasy out there, isn't it? It's
really, really greasy out there, especially on the right-hander. Because it's a left-handed circuit, you've got 2 right-handers, and once you come through this corner, it can just spit you off at any second.
Yeah, so as we see the next riders out on track, we're going to be getting the senior mini motos, which tends to give us a lot of action out there on circuit, Dan.
Quite a lot of action indeed. Thank you for your insight on that race in particular.
Jump in there, Dan. We've just had a rider go down on the sighting lap round to the grid, but they're back up and okay, and so just slipping off at turn 3 there, just testing out conditions, see where it's crashable and where it isn't.
It's best to make mistakes on the sighting laps and not on the racing laps, that is for sure. But thank you for your insight in that particular race, Brandon. That was very useful, especially knowing just how unpredictable this kind of racing can be. You're listening to live coverage of round 2 of the 2019 Cool FAB-Racing British Mini Bike Championships. We're live at Red Lodge, on Twitter at Cool FAB-Racing and at M Sport Radio. On social media, it's Facebook, it's Motorsport Radio and Cool FAB-Racing. Before we go, Brandon, have you got anyone to thank, anyone particularly want to thank, let us know now.
Yeah, I've got to thank John Anslock, Gloucester Bike Specialist, for all the work he done towards this weekend for my bike. Especially Judith for getting my parts in on time, because I had a broken bike, and if it weren't for Judith I wouldn't have the bike done. Keaton at Factory 5, he gets all my t-shirts done. Jay Dexter, Dexter Racing Corporation for my levers, and and my mum and dad, especially my dad.
You can't forget about your parents.
Can't forget about my parents.
About.
Wow. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Have a great afternoon. We will see you out very shortly in the Extreme 200s, I believe.
Yeah.
So we're going to have some very exciting action still to come here at Cool Fab. We are just on the way with the green flag lap for the senior mini motos, and then Hodgins will bring you the grid in just a moment's time.
Yeah, so as we look towards the senior mini motos rounding their warm-up lap at the moment, the starting grid looks as follows, with Will Howarth on bike number 96 starting from pole position once again ahead of Bernie Hook. We've got Rob Petit rounding out the second row, starting off the second row and 3rd spot ahead of Sammy Huntingford on bike 47. Matt Birkin, our early championship leader, is in 5th spot ahead of Chris Yeomans in 6th position on bike number 85. Craig Ashall on bike number 81 starts from 7th position on the grid ahead of Paul Nichols on bike 24 in 8th position. Andy Whedon in 9th ahead of Nick Bennett on bike number 711 in 10th position. Josh Birkin on bike number 4 and 11th. Great ride from Josh Essay, working his way up through the field. And Neil Skinner on bike number 13 starts from the back of the grid in 12th.
Well, they look towards the red lights. The riders are anticipating a great race. They are underway. Will Howard getting a great start from pole position. Richard Holmes-Williams trying to mix it in. And as they all make their way through towards turns 2 and 3 for the first time, left and then right, a very tricky flick of the chicane. A lot of the water's gone. A bit of a flick from Matt Birkin. has a bit of a fold, manages to recover it though. But so far, the race leaders make it away pretty cleanly. A little bit of contact this early in the race. 8 laps in prospect, so they've not got as much time as they would normally expect. Side by side for 3rd place. Great run down the back straight. In fact, just losing out on 2 positions almost into turn number 7 for the first time out of 8. Race leaders also contesting the particulars at the moment. Howarth versus Bernie Hook as they make their way towards the first and final corners once again.
Yes,
Will
it was
Howarth, number 96, is making such a great run of it through the final corner. Over the line it is 96 versus 0. Quite a gap in numbers, not a gap on the circuit, just half a second for this first lap.
Yeah, it was a very strange moment from Matt Birkin on the early lap there. Flicked himself at the seat. It looked very weird, but as he makes his way round the outside for 6th position and very nearly get it, that would have been a brave move if he'd made that work out there ahead of Josh Birkin. So the Birkins right there are having a good wee race as we look towards the head of the pack. It's still Bernie Hook chasing the number 96 of Will Howarth, but had a front end moment as he came through the hairpin before the back straight. We've had someone just go off the circuit, but very quickly held onto the bike, back on the bike and back in the race just ahead of the person at the back. So we had Bernie Hook, as I said, losing the front coming onto the back straight, but managed to hold it up on his knee and continued to chase after Will Howarth, but dropped back ever so slightly.
And that's pushing him into the clutches of Rob Petit in 3rd place. The number 8 rider is certainly going to be smelling a position that could be had. Chris Yeoman's in 4th place ahead of Simon Huntingford. They're side by side, and in fact, as we say this, going through, Matt Birkin up into 4th place, got a fantastic drive out of the final corner, made a couple of positions all in one go. So Howarth leads by 1.7 seconds ahead of Bernie Hook. Rob Petit barely 3/10 of a second behind at the moment, very close heading onto the back straight. Matt Birkin up to 4th, Simon Huntingford in 5th, being challenged by Paul Nicholls and Nick Bennett. A 3-race scrap for 6th, 7th and 8th at the moment. Chris Yeoman's in 8th with Josh Birkin, Craig Ashall and Neil Skinner. That's your top 11 so far. Side by side heading up with Simon Huntingford into turn 7. The long left-hander, it's a tricky one to make your way through, but these riders are making the best of the conditions, which is starting to brighten up. They are starting to dry out just a little bit, but it could all change in the space of a few laps. Bernie Hook, very big pressure now on the rider. Over the line, they're almost side by side with Rob Petit into turns 1 and 2. Oh, so close. This doesn't want to end in tears. They've got to be careful. Rotates the bike through the corner absolutely perfectly, though. Will Howarth, though, running away 2.2 seconds ahead of these two.
Now, there's a fantastic battle going on between Simon Huntingford, Paul Nicholls and Nick Bennett for 5th, 6th and 7th. There's a change of gap as we see someone go down at turn number 3. We're not too sure who that could be just yet, but the rider is back up and okay, back in the race. It's just like nothing happened. So as we head onto the back straight with Simon Huntingford, Paul Nicholls and Nick Bennett, we've got Paul Nicholls chasing the back of Huntingford as they go through the fast left-hander, which tightens up, and as they flick it towards the right-hander, we have the person who just went down a couple of moments ago parking his bike up at the edge of the circuit, and we believe it might be checking something out on his collarbone.
Meanwhile, side by side for 2nd place, Rob Petit just takes it over the line. Great run out of that final corner on Bernie Hook. So Rob Petit up to 2nd place. 3rd place for Bernie Hook, and 4th place has gone Matt Birkin. Is closing up as someone's lost it on the exit of the final corner. I think the handlebar has managed to break off on the left-hand side. That could be terminal for this race for the bike. So the bike and the man are out of this race. The rider's okay, carrying the bike back to the paddock. Pretty convenient to get back into the paddock, but Bernie Hook, Matt Birkin, side by side. Matt Birkin absolutely flies through onto the podium. He's got the pace at the moment, 53.2 compared to a 53.6 for Will Howarth. He's probably trembling in his boots a little bit now, knowing that the attacking Matt Birkin is on the way. Through the final corner, and well, Will Howarth is not as comfortable on the top step as he was even a lap or so ago, Liam. Oh, and losing it. In fact, I think Rob Petit has lost it. Rob Petit has lost it out of the final corner, back onto the bike, back into this race, loses out on the podium. Matt Birkin into 2nd place with Bernie Hook being passed. The race battle for the race leader is now on.
Oh, it absolutely is. Just giving you a quick update on the riders that did crash it a couple of moments ago. Chris Yeomans and Josh Birkin have dropped down in the order, so unfortunate for them, but hopefully they will be okay, but we'll keep an eye out on what happens with him. But as we were talking about Matt Birkin catching the race leader, he's down at turn number 6 before the back straight, back on the bike, lost a few positions there, pushing unfortunately a bit too hard, chasing Will Howarth in first spot. I believe he's just lost out to Bernie Hook, so he dropped down 1 position, but it's a great recovery from Matt Birkin, getting back on the bike very quickly. But that turn 6 hairpin is proving to be very treacherous for all riders in all categories, which is an absolute shame for Matt Birkin. We're shaping up to have a brilliant race. So Will Howarth still in the lead of the race, and Bernie Hook comes across the line any moment now, ahead of Matt Birkin. Is just a few seconds behind Bernie Hook, who still has time with 2 laps to go to try and catch the back of Bernie Hook.
But Will Howarth, 4.2 seconds, the race leader, may not well be challenged at this point. Bernie Hook second, Matt Birkin on the charge in third place. He's going to be seeing the red miss, I reckon. Now he's fallen off at turn number 6. He is continuing, is carrying on with this race. Nick Bennett into 4th ahead of Simon Huntingford. Still enjoying a great scrap with Nick Bennett, but that may open up in the next lap or so. Paul Nicholls ahead of Rob Petit after Rob Petit fell. Craig Ashall and Neil Skinner are ahead of Chris Yeomans and Josh Birkin. A lap and a half to go. In fact, it is pretty much a lap to go now. The number 96 of Will Howarth is preparing for the final lap showdown. It's one more lap to keep it on the island, and as the flag is being shown for them, this is their one last lap where all the pressure is on. Could Will Howarth win this race? Will Bernie Hook or even Matt Birkin capitalise on any mistakes?
So Matt Birkin is only 1.4 seconds behind Bernie Hook in second. He was a full second quicker on the previous lap. We don't know if he will be able to catch up before the end of the race, but he's putting in all his effort. He's seeing red mist, as you said earlier on, Dan. He's smelling blood at the moment with Bernie Hook just ahead of him. Will he be able to catch it onto the back straight now? Bernie Hook gets a brilliant run onto the back straight. We've got Matt Birkin late on the brakes, cornering through the tight left-hander, catching ever so slightly as it tightens up, flicking it right into the last couple of corners. Will Howarth comes down towards the final turn. Matt Birkin, great exit from the previous right-hander, comes down to the final turn. We have Will Howarth coming through the final corner at the moment. Matt Birkin all over the back of Bernie Hook, but it's Will Howarth across the line taking the win. Bernie Hook just holds on from Matt Birkin on the final lap, setting a lap time that was only 1/10 slower than what he set before his crash a couple of laps ago. Nick Bennett comes across the line in 4th position. Simon Huntingford should be next up in 5th and crosses line on bike number 47 in 5th position there. Paul Nicholls and Rob Petit will see coming across the line side by side pretty much. Paul Nicholls in 6th spot, Rob Petit in 7th. We've got Craig Ashall and Neil Skinner waiting to come across the line in the next few moments as well. As they come across the line now, it will be Craig Ashall on bike number 81 in 8th position. Neil Skinner, as the riders head into the pits, Neil Skinner hasn't come across the line but will be classified in 9th position ahead of Chris Yeomans and Josh Birkin, who didn't complete the race unfortunately. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the order. So it was Will Howarth in first spot, 1.9 seconds ahead of Bernie Hook, who just held second spot ahead of Matt Birkin by 1/10 of a second. That was your podium positions. Great race by all involved, Dan.
Well, a fantastic race. We move on to the Mini GP 50s, and of course we will have one more race for the rest of them later on this afternoon. One final race to go, but we have just a few more races to go, in fact, as well. We are starting to catch up a bit of time now. The time now is 12:43. We're due to get the Mini GP 50s out at 12:10. So we are running about 36 minutes behind at the moment. Great work from the marshals and the medics and all the race control to get everyone into the right order. Thank you very much for tuning in and joining us. This is live coverage of round 2 of the 2019 Cool FAB-Racing British Mini Bike Championships. We are live at the Red Lodge circuit, are live on Motorsport Radio and on the Cool FAB-Racing websites. At Cool FAB-Racing, use the hashtag CoolFab to get in touch with us. Keep letting us know who you're supporting this weekend, who you're looking forward to seeing do well, who you want to let know who needs a bit of support. Thanks for tuning in, and the Mini GP50s head out onto circuit.
Yeah, so just give you a quick update what happened in yesterday's first race of the Mini GP50s as the bikes make their way round towards the starting grid before the start of their warm-up lap. We had Ryan Hitchcock take the win in very dry conditions at that point, ahead of Kyle Payne on bike number 25, with Harrison Crosby on bike number 69 taking 3rd position, only 8 seconds. I say only 8 seconds, but a full 8 seconds behind Ryan Hitchcock in 1st position. In 4th spot was Lucas Brown, Josh Bannister rounded out the top 5 ahead of Mason Johnson, who put in a great effort to work his way up the field and finished in 6th spot there ahead of Alfie Davidson. Jimmy Parker in 8th position. Ronnie Harris came in 9th position in race number 1 here at Red Lodge. And in 10th spot was Taylor Stewart Campbell ahead of Ben Jolliffe, and Ollie Horner, apologies, was in 12th position ahead of Harrison McKee in 13th. Unfortunately, Warwick Brady and Finnan Werty were not classified at the end of the race, as all the riders are now lining up on the grid. It's very wet conditions out there, but it looks like dry lines are starting to appear.
Dry lines are starting to appear. We had 3 goes of getting the Mini GP 70 race completed earlier, so fingers crossed we can all get through this safely. I'm touching wood as I say that, by the way. And we will be getting underway with the warm-up lap in just a few moments' time. So, Mini GP 50s out on circuit at the moment. Just a handful of more races to go for the second set of races this morning. The Extreme 200s will be following this race, and the Mini F1 sidecars will complete our action before lunch. Thank you for joining us. This is live coverage of the second round of the 2009 Cool FAB-Racing British Mini Bike Championships, and Liam Hodgins is the man with the grid for the second race for the Mini GP50s.
Yes, so Kyle Payne leads off pole position on bike number 25 ahead of yesterday's race winner Ryan Hitchcock on bike number 43. Lucas Brown heads up row number 2 on bike number 29 in 3rd spot ahead of Josh Bannister. In 5th position was Mason Johnson on bike 808 ahead of Alfie Davidson on bike number 8 in 6th spot. Harrison Crosby on bike number 69, who managed to put in a fantastic effort in yesterday's race to climb his way up to 3rd spot, will be starting in 7th position ahead of Jimmy Parker on bike number 39. Taylor Stewart Campbell heads off row number 5 in 9th spot ahead of Ronnie Harris. Harrison McKee in 11th spot, as we see one of the riders pushing the bikes off the circuit. Dan, did you see what happened there?
I'm not sure what happened. I saw the bike on the floor. The rider is up and trying to get the bike restarted. Marshall's going over to help them. We may get a delayed start because of this. Everyone else is getting back to the grid, so if you want to quickly just round out what the rest of the grid will form up as.
Yeah, so Ollie Horner will be in 12th spot on bike 70, Ben Jolliffe on bike 125 in 13th, Warwick Brady on bike number 99 in 14th, and Finnan Werty rounding out the runners and riders in 15th spot. So it looks like we're missing someone from 4th position, which is Josh Bannister. I'm not sure if that was Josh Bannister.
It is Josh Bannister.
Yeah, so
he's coming to the grid now.
So Josh Bannister fortunately gets the bike running again, will be making his way to the grid. That is fortunate that the bike number 2 of Josh Bannister will be starting from his 4th position on the grid.
Well, get your mistakes out on the sighting laps, not in the racing laps. That's what we've been saying all day. They look towards the red lights. This is the start. The second Mini GP50 race. A bit of creeping from Lucas Brown and a few others on the grid. Heading towards the first turn for the first time. Kyle Payne makes a good start. Everyone else making their way through the first couple of corners for the first time. It's a bit quieter, this grid. They're all going to try and be a bit more careful as they tiptoe their way around this circuit. 10 laps this race will be, so we're shaving a few laps off our races earlier this morning to try and get as much time and as much racing action as we can for this afternoon. Heading onto the back straight already, the 2 race leaders, Kyle Payne up there with Lucas Brown, have made a good start, gapping Ryan Hitchcock and Josh Bannister. They're battling it out for 3rd and 4th as it stands right now. A 10-lap race in prospects. The track is starting to dry. Dry might not be the right word. The water's shifting from the racing line to the rest of the parts of the circuit. Now, that sounds quite good for the racing, but it actually isn't, because you've got to push when you're trying to make an overtake. It's going to be so much more difficult trying to find the grip offline, such as what's happening now with Lucas Brown. A great run out in the final corner, and he leads the race. So, as we were saying, it could be difficult. Sometimes the offline's a good line, because he's taking the lead, just 0.155 ahead of Kyle Payne. As your 2 race leaders, Josh Bannister in 3rd ahead of Ryan Hitchcock. Then it's Harrison Crosby. They're all battling for the race lead. Mason Johnson in 6th ahead of Jimmy Parker. Ronnie Harris is getting involved with Ollie Horner and Ben Jolliffe as well. A rider goes down. Number 8 loses it at the moment. We've also got someone else slowing at turn 3. The riders are back on the bikes and about to get underway into the race again, so all is well. Yellow flags at turn 5, but the race battle for the race lead really starting to become pretty much the whole field, Liam.
Yes, absolutely, Dan. So it's a great start by Lucas Brown, who takes the lead. As you were saying just there, sometimes with the dry patch on the line, if the tyres are starting to not or heat up too much, sometimes the wet part of the track is a good place to be. So Lucas Brown got a fantastic exit from the final turn across the line now, opening up a big gap ahead of Kyle Payne, who's got Josh Bannister, Ryan Hitchcock, Harrison Crosby, and of course Mason Johnson all over the back of them, as we've got some riders trying to go round the outside at turn number 2. You can't make that stick, surely, and nearly getting through. That looks like it was Harrison Crosby. We know that Harrison loves to make those audacious moves, but Harrison Crosby just got squeezed out by Ryan Hitchcock as he went through the right-hander. Fastest lap of the race has gone to Ronnie Harris, a 59.035, looking like he's catching the back of the riders in front of him.
There's a big train starting to develop for second place, and I noticed coming out of the final corner, Kyle Payne really struggles with the traction on the rear tyre coming out of the final corner. It just takes a couple of tenths longer to put the power down, but that has the effect of concertinaing everyone else behind them up and really closing them in. We've had a rider fall at turn number 5, just lost the front end. They're going to recover that now, but 29, Lucas Brown, very clear leader. Second place, Kyle Payne, sussing the line perhaps a bit more now, but Josh Bannister in third is fighting so far. Harrison Crosby up to 4th place, so did make the move stick. Yellow flags back in at turn number 5, but a rider down at the final corner. Don't know who that is at the moment. We'll get you more information when we can, but the battle very much with Harrison Crosby, Josh Bannister, Ryan Hitchcock, they're all nose to tail. The rider at the final corner is trying to get underway. They're back onto the bike. The bike, though, didn't want to get going, give it a bit of a push, and is back underway. That is Ollie Horner, it seems, thumping the bike, trying to get it working, so could be a technical issue with that bike, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it looks like Ollie Horner did manage to get the bike picked back up, bashing the handlebar back down, trying to get it into position. Looked more angry at himself than anything else on the circuit. But as we look back towards the battle up front, it looks like a steady gap between Lucas Brown and Kyle Payne. Now we will have Josh Bannister and Harrison Crosby trying to make a move on the second position. Kyle Payne any moment now. As the riders come across the line, Josh Bannister takes the fastest lap momentarily as Harrison Crosby takes it once again ahead of Ryan Hitchcock. We've got Harrison Crosby looking like he's going to shape up a move on Josh Bannister as they come through the middle part of the track. Round the outside once again, we've got Harrison Crosby doing it up the inside into the right-hander, pushing Ryan Hitchcock, Josh Bannister wide as Ryan Hitchcock nips through from 5th position into 3rd as they head towards the hairpin just before the back straight.
We had a rider who just tipped it at the exit of turn number 3. They are back underway, back onto the bike, so that's all right. We'll identify that bike when it comes round. The battle, though, for 2nd and 3rd, still hotting up. It's Kyle Payne and Josh Bannister. You just mentioned that, but it's getting so close. They're side by side. They're rubbing each other, just trying to make sure they can make the pass complete. Lucas Brown, in all of this, is quite enjoying it. The pressure's off, but he is being closed in by the ensuing pack. Lucas Brown leads the race, the number 29, with about half the race to go. 5 laps completed, 5 to go. Is only 0.787 ahead of Kyle Payne. Ryan Hitchcock sets the new fastest lap in 3rd place, 58.264, with the bit between his teeth. He's expecting a good result from this. 3rd place is good, but could be changed. 4th is Harrison Crosby. 5th is Mason Johnson. That's all just a battle for the race lead. Josh Bannister in 6th, ahead of Ronnie Harris. Jimmy Parker dropping down to 8th place at the moment. Taylor Stewart Campbell, Harrison McKee, Ollie Horner and Ben Jolliffe. That is your race order at the halfway stage.
Unfortunate for Josh Bannister on big number 2, losing it big time on the previous lap, with Harrison Crosby pushing him wide at the turn number 5 hairpin. So he's dropped from 3rd down to 6th spot. But as you said, Ryan Hitchcock, fastest lap of the race, benefiting from that wee incident on the previous lap. Lucas Brown still holds the lead of the race, but Kyle Payne is putting in a very good effort to try and catch the race leader at the moment as they come across the line. That gap looks smaller. It is, as I said, it looks smaller. It isn't smaller. It's 0.8 of a second. It's increased by 1/10. But we've got Ryan Hitchcock and Harrison Crosby only 1/10 of a second. Ryan Hitchcock looks like he could be under a lot of pressure from Harrison Crosby as we've got a lap lap marker getting pushed out of the way by the race leaders, which has sent Lucas Brown quite wide. Kyle Payne is trying to make his way up the inside as the back marker gets in the way of the race leaders, Dan.
Well, the rider in the other rider they're trying to negotiate, they couldn't quite pick the right line because they tried to go up the inside at turn 5, got hung out to dry on the outside, gives Lucas Brown some respite. Harrison Crosby on that last lap, you say they close in, fastest lap, the new fastest lap of this race as well. So the pace is turning up hotter and hotter. Lucas Brown under increasing pressure. Kyle Payne in second place, being hunted whilst being hunting at the same time. Final corner, 4 bikes, line astern, 29, 25, 43, 69, as quick as you dare. Harrison Crosby's really the one with the confidence though, into turn 1 and 2. Looks around the outside, he's got a good amount of grip, going to try and make the position, can't make it stick though, and all of a sudden, Ryan Hitchcock so close to the back of Kyle Payne, almost trips up on him. This is when the racing gets difficult because you've got the pace, but you haven't got quite enough pace to get through just instantly. You've got to work at it, and that's when mistakes and collisions happen, when you're just trying to push your luck maybe a little bit too more. But with a good run out of turn number 6 onto the back straight, can he make the move stick into turn 7? Not quite. He looks around the outside, but perhaps just for a bit of breathing space. Late move at turn 7, nope, still can't quite do it at this stage. 2.5 laps to go though, Liam, and it's still all hell for leather for second place. He's side by side again though.
It absolutely is a fantastic racing for the Mini GP 50 class, with Kyle Payne, Ryan Hitchcock and Harrison Crosby trying every single which way to get past one another and to try and hunt down Lucas Brown at the lead of the race. Watch out for Harrison Crosby into turn number 2. He's going up the inside of Ryan Hitchcock. Does he make it stick? Not quite, but pushes them out, both out wide a little bit. Once again, Ryan Hitchcock chopping the nose off of Harrison Crosby as they head towards turn number 5. Kyle Payne all over the back of Lucas Brown as he gets the power down. Lucas Brown looks like he's struggling out of turn number 5 and towards turn number 6 as they head on to the back straight. Will we see a pass for the lead? Will we see a pass for third place as they head down towards the turn number 7 left-hander?
They're getting a good run around the outside. Harrison Crosby still looking to make the overtake and onto the podium. Lucas Brown is going to try and make a good effort. Turning through the final few corners, Harrison Crosby well in the mix, heading up towards the final corner for the penultimate time. We're going to have 1 lap to go, but Harrison Crosby makes the move up the inside for second place, makes it through. He's in second place. Third place is a late move to make it through, but Harrison Crosby from 4th place into second place. He's trying to give it a race lead. He's up the inside. There was a bike stopped on the right hand side of turn 1. Did he make an illegal overtake on the yellow flag? That's going to be the question. But Harrison Crosby through into the lead of this race. Lucas Brown will be absolutely fuming, but he's got half a lap to respond.
Yeah, Dan, there was no yellow flags out at that moment in time, so Harrison Crosby did make a move for the lead of the race on Lucas Brown. Great action from Harrison Brown. 3 positions in half a lap. Managed to get ahead of Ryan Hitchcock through the tight right-hander, then Kyle Payne towards the final turn. So will Harrison Crosby, apologies, hold the lead of the race. He's opened up a couple of bike lengths on Lucas Brown on this final lap. We've got Ryan Hitchcock all over the back of Kyle Payne as they come down towards the final turn. It's Harrison Crosby still leading the race ahead of Lucas Brown. Exiting the final corner, Harrison Crosby comes across the line to take the win of the Mini GP 50s ahead of Lucas Brown with the fastest lap of the race on the last lap there, Dan. Harrison Crosby, what a brilliant ride by that youngster. Kyle Payne just holds off Ryan Hitchcock for 3rd spot ahead of Mason Johnson, just off the back of the group ever so slightly on bike number 808. So a quick rundown of the results. Harrison Crosby takes a brilliant race result, a win on his part on bike number 69, fastest lap of the race on the final lap, ahead of Lucas Brown, who led most of the race until the final lap, ahead of Kyle Payne in 3rd spot. We have Ryan Hitchcock in 4th, Mason Johnson in 5th place, Josh Bannister on bike number 2, who fell off on the sighting lap but managed to remount and start in 4th position, finishing in 6th. Ronnie Harris in 7th spot, ahead of Jimmy Parker in 8th position there. Taylor Stewart Campbell will be in 9th place, ahead of Harrison McKee. Ollie Horner in 11th place there after falling off early on in the race at the final turn, remounting and finishing in 11th. And Ben Jolliffe rounding out the Runners and Riders in 12th spot there. So Great action in the Mini GP50s. Once again, we can always count on this class to provide some fantastic racing action. And we've got to talk once again about Harrison Crosby there, providing some great action, passing 3 riders in the last lap and a half. Did you expect it to happen?
Well, I don't think anyone quite expected it to happen so late in the race, but with a determined charge, just picked out the right lines at the right times and got the move made. I saw the marshals recovering a bike on the outside of Turner Moore, so for a minute I thought, is this going to become controversial? But if there was no yellow flags, you know, they were expected to lift off perhaps, but made the move stick when he needed to and absolutely settled it, and a perfect race to take the win in the second Mini GP50 race of the weekend. We're now going to go for a slight change in the schedule. We're now going to go for our lunch break, so the Extreme 200 Race 2 and the Mini F1 Sidecars Race 2 will take place after the lunch break in a short while. Well, I think we all need a bit of a sit down and a bit of a breather after that. Some fantastic action. We're going to be back with you very shortly indeed, but a big thank you to all of the marshals, all of the medics